It's only to be used for medical emergencies, so if you happen to drop anything over the side of the vehicle, tell me at the end of our tour, and we'll see if we can get that for you. But other than that, please only use that strip for medical emergencies. Those of you closest to the front of our vehicle probably notice that you don't have the yellow strip. That's because there's a window located right behind me, and I can also see you pretty well in my rearview mirror. Alright, and that pretty much covers all of the rules. One final thing for the courtesy of all the guests around you, please silence your cell phones, pagers, electronic devices. At the end of the tour, I'll remind you to turn those back on. As we move up ahead, start to look out to your right-hand side. We're going to be looking at this exhibit for the world's fastest land mammal, South African cheetahs. We don't see them right away. It means that they are camouflaging and hiding from us. That, or they're on the other side of the exhibit.
It's okay, we won't fight.
Looks like they've gotten a fresh grass cutting this morning, so they might be hiding from us right now. That's okay. We have a better view over here on the left.
Look at the...
To our left, you can see some of the Rothschild's giraffes.
See the giraffes?
World's tallest land mammal. Giraffes usually reach about 18 feet tall with the males. The females stay about 16 feet. You can see one of them towards the front of our vehicle bending over to get something to eat out of that feeding truck. Notice how the front legs are kind of splayed. Well, it's a pretty long way to go for a drink of water or to pick something up off of the ground. Giraffes are at their most vulnerable position when they're standing like that because all the body weight is supported on those two front legs. So if they get attacked, they'd have a very difficult time raising their head fast enough to try to avoid those predators. All right, behind the giraffe, you see a herd of some medium-sized brown antelope. It's called the fringe-eared oryx. Now they're called fringe-eared because on the tips of their ears, there's a little tassel of fur. And those ears can be used as an alert flag. When there's a predator nearby, they perk their ears forward towards the location of that predator, telling the rest of the herd where to look out for. As they're sitting down, they are still looking for predators because they're sitting in an alert circle formation. We're all looking out in different directions, so they never completely let down their guard.
Hey, what's that?
We'll see a few more alert behaviors as we move up ahead. We'll be looking at about 50 different species of African mammals and birds. All of them are specially adapted to survive out there in Africa. But we find them here in our facility because there's certain things that are facing these animals, such as poaching, loss of habitat, climate change that's making a very, very big difference. And because of those differences, we're starting to see the animals populations slowly getting smaller and smaller.
Everywhere.
Some of the animals that have the biggest impact are coming up on our right-hand side. This exhibit to our right, we'll be looking for the East African black rhino. This rhino isn't out there with the rest of our animal species collection because they are the more temperamental rhino species. You'll see mother and calf right behind that very first tree, or in front of us, depending on what view you look at them from. That is our 12th baby black rhino calf that we had born at our facility. I'll move down here just a little bit more. Now looking at that rhino, she doesn't look very dark at all. She's actually a gray colored rhino. And the myth behind why they got the name black rhino is because they were probably rolling around in the mud, a nice form of rhino copper tone. That mud helps to shield their skin because they don't have very much fur, so they could sunburn pretty easily. Also helps to get rid of parasites. But by rolling around in that dark mud, gives them that really dark coloration. So they were misnamed the black rhino. But all rhinos have that gray coloration. The only difference between the black and the white rhino is the head size and shape. Black rhinos have a triangular shaped upper lip. because they are browsers, meaning that they'll pluck some of those leaves off of those trees, which is why all the trees in that exhibit have a nice barricade of boulders around them.
They must, because they all
Black rhino is what we call an edge species. We find them surviving on the outskirts of different habitats. And they're more temperamental because they have pretty poor eyesight. They can only see about 25 feet in front of them. So they use that horn first and ask questions later. But the rest of our rhino collection is going to be found in this large exhibit out here. If you look along the water's edge, you'll see some shaggy brown animals. Kind of looks like they're set in a can of white paint called the ellipsid waterbuck. The white circle on the hindquarter area is called a follow me mark. Designed to help those animals keep track of one another as they migrate. The ellipsid waterbuck are very dependent on water, not just to quench their thirst, but it's also their first line of defense. When they feel threatened by predators, they jump into that large body of water nearby. And they can stay in that water until the predator moves away, then they come back out. And that water beads up and rolls right off of their tongue. Very water-dependent animals that migrate over several miles throughout the drought season. There are a few animals, though, that are able to survive their entire life without any water. And you'll see some of them on the right-hand side in our large desert exhibit.
Wait a minute.
We'll be looking at the large white animals with the spiraling horns. They're called the addax. At what point in time there was less than 50 addax out there in the Sahara Desert. They were widely overhunted for those horns. Here at the park we started breeding them back in 1972 when we first opened up. And since then we were able to reintroduce a small herd of about a dozen addax back out to Tunisia in December of 2007. And they're doing very well out there in Tunisia. Desert adapted, they could survive their entire life without any water. All the moisture that they need comes from the plants that they eat.
Look at the balloon up there.
Looking at that beautiful desert exhibit, we move on to the oasis, the marsh exhibit here. If you look very closely behind